Today we're going to talk about how to write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to a given line. And here I have two lines that are perpendicular. Now notice that these lines do not have the same slope like they did for parallel. Here, perpendicular lines, the slopes are going to be opposite reciprocals. And what that means is, let's say our original line has a slope of 2/3. So let's say this is the original line. If I wanted to find the slope of the line that was perpendicular, so we'll let this represent the perpendicular, I would take the given slope of 2/3, I would flip it, make it 3/2. And since this is positive, the opposite of a positive is a negative. So my perpendicular would be negative 3/2. One more example would be, let's say our slope is -5. Well, if the slope is -5 of the given line, the slope of the perpendicular line would be, I would take the 5, I would flip it, and get 1/5, a -1/5. And then what I need to do is I want it to be opposite. This is negative, so this needs to be a positive. So the negative reciprocal would be 1/5. So remember, perpendicular lines, the slopes are going to be opposite reciprocals. We're going to take the slope, we're going to flip it, and we're going to change the sign. Let's go ahead and look at an example. I want to write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to y equals -3x plus 1 and goes through the point 6, 1. So just like before, we're going to start with our given line, this y equals -3x plus 1. And here we're going to look at it and determine what is the slope of the given line. Well, the slope of the given line here, since it's in slope-intercept, I can look at it and see the slope is going to be, the coefficient of x would be -3. Now that's the slope of the given line. What I need to do is come up with my new slope, of the line that's perpendicular. So what I'll do is I'll take that slope, I want to flip it, so if I take -3 and flip it, I get -1/3. And then I want to change the sign. So instead of -1/3, I'm going to have +1/3. And that's my new slope. So now I have a slope, I have a point, I can use point slope and take that equation and solve it for y. So I have y minus y sub 1 equals my new slope times x minus x sub 1. So I have y minus, now remember, just like before with the parallel lines, your x sub 1 will be coming from this point right here. So here x sub 1 is 6 and y sub 1 will be 1. So I'm going to take these and plug them in. So my y sub 1 would be 1. I would plug it in here. My perpendicular slope is 1/3 times x minus my x sub 1 is a 6. And then all I need to do is manipulate this and solve it for y. Now, I need to go ahead and distribute the 1/3. So let's do that first. I have 1/3 x, and then 1/3 of 6 is going to be 2, a -2. Remember, 1 times 6 is -6, 3 times 1 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then all I do is add 1 to both sides. So I have y equals 1/3 x, and a minus 2 plus 1 would be, oops, not a plus. Yikes. Sorry. It would be a -1. Minus 2 plus 1 is a -1. So here's the equation of my new line. And if I compare the two lines, I see here the slope is -3. Here my slope is 1/3. If I take -3 and I flip it and change the sign, I do get 1/3. And then I've got some different y-intercepts. So this line is perpendicular to the original line. So that was pretty straightforward. Let's look at one that's not quite so straightforward. Here I've got to write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to 3x minus 4 equals 6. Now here, right here, this is not a slope-intercept, so we cannot assume that the coefficient of x here is the slope. It's probably not the slope. So what I'm going to have to do is take my equation, 3x minus 4y equals 6, and I'm going to have to manipulate it a little bit. What I need to do is I need to solve it for y. So the first thing I'm going to do is probably subtract 3x from both sides, so I have a minus 4y equals a -3x plus 6. And remember, just like in the parallel lesson, the reason I put the 3x first is because I'm thinking of the general form as being y equals mx plus b. That way it just kind of matches the template. So here I've got minus 3x plus 6 equals -4y. So I need to get rid of my -4. So I have two options. I can divide by -4, or I can go ahead and multiply everything by the reciprocal of -4, which would be a -1/4. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1/4. It has the same effect as dividing. So negative 1/4 times 4 is just going to be 1. So I have y equals, and then I'm going to take the negative 1/4. I'm going to distribute it. So negative 3 times a negative 1 is going to be a positive 3. And then 1 times 4 would be 4. So this is going to be 3/4 x. And then 6 times a negative 1/4 is going to be a negative 6/4. Okay, and I could go back and go ahead and reduce that on the end. I've got y equals 3/4 x, and just reduce the negative 6/4 to negative 3/2. That just simplifies everything. Now this is not the equation of the line that's perpendicular, okay? This right here just tells me what the slope of my line is. This up here is in standard form. I have to take it and solve it for y in order to figure out what my slope is. And the slope of my original line is not 3. My slope is 3/4. So I had to do a little bit of work. Oops, my pen is just misbehaving. Let me erase that. Had to do some work to find out that the original slope was 3/4. Now, the next step would be to figure out what my new slope is of the line that's perpendicular. So I take that 3/4, I'm going to flip it and get 4/3. Then I'm going to change the sign. So instead of being just 4/3, it has to be a negative 4/3. So this is a slope that I'm going to be working with here in blue. So I have a slope, I have a point, and I can use point slope. So I'm going to go ahead and write the form y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So remember, this is your x1, this is your y1. So y minus, so y sub 1 is a minus 2, so I plug in a minus 2, using parentheses, which is what you should do, equals a negative 4/3 times x minus, and my x sub 1 is a 9. Now remember, I want to clean it up, so I have y, oops, that looks more like an x. Pen is misbehaving. So I have y, and a minus minus is a plus, so y plus 2. I take the negative 4/3 and I want to distribute it. So I get negative 4/3 x, and then a negative 4 and a negative 9 is a plus 36, and divide by 3, and I'm going to get 12 right here. Now remember, I want to solve for y, so I'm going to subtract 2 now. So y equals a negative 4/3 x plus 10, and I will have the equation of a line that is perpendicular to my given line. If I compare these two right here, I can see the slope was 3/4. Here the slope is negative 4/3, which is the reciprocal, and then I change the sign, make it negative, and I have different y-intercepts. So this line is my answer. Okay, so take some time, go back over this, study it, see what kind of questions you have, and I will see you in class.